Welcome back. This is the second to the last section of Chapter 7. So in the last section, we learned how to look at a parabola in vertex form. That's what this is called. And we were able to say, oh, the vertex is H, because we do the opposite of that, comma, K. And if A is positive, it cups up. If A is negative, it cups down. But what we're going to learn in this section is, what do we do if it's not in vertex form? What if it looks like this? How are we going to find the vertex? So remember when we learned completing the square back in, when was it? Was it 7-1? I think it was 7-1 if I remember right. This is 8-1. That can't be right. That must be 7-1. So we can write the equation in this form by completing the square. Yes, it was 7-1. Process is similar to what we did in 7-1. So if you want to look back at your notes from that, except that algebra manipulations are performed on the right-hand side of the equation. So before, when we were completing the square, we'd write x squared minus 6x plus blank equals -8 plus blank. Remember doing that? Well, that's what we're going to do in this section. So over here we have what I did is I took this equation and I just flipped it over, but I still have that f of x over there. So I'm going to write plus f of x here. So I subtract 8, and I get x squared minus 6x plus blank equals -8 plus f of x, and then we add the blank in. So I kind of did that in a weird way. They do it all on one side, and I found from doing this in previous sections that students have a really hard time doing it on one side because they don't get the whole opposite thing. I'll go through and explain this, but a lot of students like to do it on a different side. So let's see. So we take the 8 and we put it outside because it's not part of completing the square. So we have a blank here, and I'm not going to put a sign there, and I'll show you why in a second, and a blank there. So if you want to do it all on the same side, which would probably be easier because this is how they'll teach it in 150. Well, not really teach it. They're going to assume you already know it, but this is how they'll show it in the problems. So I would probably try this, and Connect will explain it this way, so it might be easier. So we learned you do half of b squared. Remember that formula? So half b is -6. Remember, it's always the linear term, the term in the middle. And you can see up there the term in the middle. So half of -6. Then when I get that, I need to square it. So that would be -3 squared, which is 9. Plus 9 equals 9. Okay, now here's where you have to think about this. So I need to add 9 inside to complete that square. But because we're on the same side, here I added 9 because we're on different sides. When you're on the same side, you have to add 9 and then subtract 9. Because isn't 9 minus 9 0? And aren't we back to the original problem? So whatever we do the opposite. So add 9 inside, and then with the 8 out there, we're going to subtract 9. So then we learned the little shortcut to factoring was take the square root of this, use that sign, and take the square root of this. So it's 1, and then it's x minus 3, quantity squared, and -9 plus 8 is -1. So now it is in vertex form. Yay! So now we can state the vertex. The vertex is the opposite of what's inside, 3, comma, whatever's out back, -1. A is greater than 0, so that means it cups up. The axis of symmetry, remember, is always x equals whatever that is. And since the parabola cups up, the vertex is going to be the lowest point, so we call it a minimum. And the minimum is always the y of the vertex, so we write minimum equals -1. Finding the x and y intercepts are just like what we did earlier in this chapter. For the x-intercept, you make y 0. Most important thing you probably learned in this class. X-intercept, make y 0. So it's easier if you go into the original equation. So the original equation was f of x equals x squared minus 6x plus 8. So the new equation we found, that's really handy for finding the vertex. It's not nice for finding x-intercepts. It's not nice for finding y-intercepts. So go back to the original and it's much easier. So if we set y 0, this is our y, we get x squared minus 6x plus 8 equals 0. And then we say, what are factors of 8 that add to 6? 2 and 4, sign same, both negative. So it'd be x minus 4, x minus 2 equals 0. So what makes that 0? 4, x is 4. What makes this 0? 2, x is 2. So the two x-intercepts, and remember, intercepts are always written as points, 4, 0, 2, 0. So then we can go to the graph and do 4, 0, 2, 0, and our vertex was 3, -1. And remember, you need 5 points to graph a vertex. So we have 3, or to graph a parabola. I guess I shouldn't have started making videos at 10 at night, huh? So there's 3 points, so we need 2 more. To find the y-intercept, remember you always set the other letter equal to 0, so set x equal to 0. So everywhere you see an x in this original equation, plug in 0. So f of 0 equals 0 squared minus 6 times 0 plus 8. So 0 plus 0 plus 8 is 8. So that means the y-intercept is 0, 8. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so here's the new thing from this section. To get the 5th point, which you need 5 points, you reflect it. So first we're going to draw in the axis of symmetry, which was x equals 3. So I'm going to turn my graph sideways here so I can do that. And to reflect the point, I say, oh, okay, from this line I went over 1, 2, 3. So to reflect the point, I go over 1, 2, 3 to the right, and there's my reflection point. Now, excuse me, now I have 5 points. I'm ready to draw my parabola. Make sure and put arrows on both ends. Sweet, huh? Excuse me. And on the paper pencil tests, those were 2 10-point questions. So this to me is like accumulation of everything you've ever learned. It has completing the square. It has factoring. It has x-intercepts. It has y-intercepts. It has finding the vertex, finding the axis of symmetry, graphing. So that's why I thought they were so important when I made the paper pencil test, is because they're everything in one problem. The only thing that's included on the test that is not included here is I also asked for domain and range. So we learned that domain goes left forever, right forever. So the domain of a parabola is always -infinity to +infinity. And that's because of the arrows. That's why I'm such a stickler about the arrows because the arrows tell me it goes left and right forever. Every vertical parabola, as we said in a previous video, has this same domain and range, whether it cups up or cups down. In the range, we roll our pencil. The lowest y value, and I should have labeled the vertex as 3, -1. So the lowest y value is -1, and it's an actual point, so that means it gets a bracket. And the highest y value is infinity. So that's all the things you have to do on your test for the 2 10-pointers. Find the vertex, find the axis of symmetry, find the max or min, find the x-intercepts, find the y-intercepts, find the domain and range, sketch the parabola, sketch and label the axis of symmetry. So that is a perfect problem to study for the test. So let's highlight it. And I want to say it's 10 and 11 on the test. Let me get a practice test to verify, but I believe it's number 10 and 11. Oh, 11 and 12. So put 11 and 12 there. And I'm going to do the same thing on this next test that I did on the last one. There's 2 important things to know when you get ready for the test. Just like on the last one, and I know some of you are like, oh, she says that all the time, but I think you probably recognize. First off, every problem on the test is from your Connect homework. I just go through the homework and go, oh, that looks like my test question. Oh, that looks like my test question. And I just pick problems. So you definitely want to do your homeworks. Second thing you want to do is your practice test, because the practice test gives you the order and the kind of problems. So the problems themselves will come from the homework, but the practice test will dictate the order of the test, what kind of problems are going to be on it, how many are going to be on it, and so on. Okay, so I think we have time to at least start one on the next page. It might take a second video to finish it, but we can at least start it. So this is another great one to study for number 11 and 12. All of these are that we're going to do actually. And since it's 20 points out of, I think the test is 70 or something, that's a lot of points. Okay, so write the function in vertex form. So we'll go ahead and do it the way Connect's going to do it and the way you're going to see it in college algebra, because I want you to get used to that. So f of x equals, so in parentheses, you put what you want to complete the square on. Okay, and my leading coefficient's 1. If I want to keep it out there, that just reminds me that it cups up because it's a positive 1. And it also tells me it's going to be the mother function. We can talk about that too. Let's just go back to that last one and you'll see the mother function. So because the leading coefficient is 1, that means it follows the mother function that we learned earlier in the chapter, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 4. So watch this. Here's my 0, 0. Right 1, up 1, left 1, up 1. So there's that. Right 1, 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4. Ding, 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 ding. Look at that. Left 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4. Ding, ding, ding. So I could have used that as my 4th and 5th point instead of what I found up here. But I had to find the y-intercept anyway, so it made sense to use it. But just remember, if leading, then you can use the mother function. Okay, either cupping up or cupping down. So we'll go to the next page on the next video. Okay, we just have 10 seconds left, so I'll end it here. See you in a bit.